So, like I said, MyAgData was founded in 2012 in Effingham, Illinois, and it's designed with the field at its core. Everything connects to the field, especially when you connect with Climate FieldView. We're saving farmers, MyAgData is saving farmers time, money, and improving the quality of the data they collect. Who doesn't want that? MyAgData software collects, translates, organizes, and delivers field data from FieldView for both USDA and crop insurance acreage reports. So the farmer benefits here really are insurance coverage and subsidies are based on actual planted acres, which tend to be between 4.7 and 6.9% less than those FSA acres. So we're more accurate and it's easy. MyAgData guides you through the entire process to ensure all the information is collected. No more mistakes. MyAgData eliminates the human error that can come when acres on a field are manually entered. And imagine reporting acreage with no errors. What a wonderful world. Quick, accurate production reporting means simplified production reports with a more accurate APH. And so let's get into our speakers. We have Mr. Don Bierman. He is the CEO of MyAgData. Don grew up on a small farm in southeastern Illinois, and he graduated from the University of Illinois in 1989. Mr. Bierman spent 34 years working at Wabash Valley Service Company and now serves as the CEO of Crop IMS LLC, an ag technology company based in Illinois and Wisconsin offering technology solutions to farmers and service providers all over the Midwest. Crop IMS assisted in the foundation of Independent Data Management LLC in 2012, whose primary product, MyAgData, facilitates the automated submission of crop acreage reporting to the USDA. MyAgData provides SaaS solutions to captive insurance companies and other industries, including carbon and traceability. We also have with us today Michelle Trussell. She is our Chief Revenue Officer. As Chief Revenue Officer, Michelle leads business development efforts and strategic partner relationships for MyAgData. As an experienced and strategic leader, Michelle brings more than 20 years of diverse industry experience building and growing organizational expansions across alternative and traditional investment management, agriculture, healthcare, and software industries. She is a consummate connector who leverages her extensive background to deliver elegant client solutions to complex problems in highly regulated environments. Wow, Michelle, that sounds like a whole lot of work. I'm glad we have you on that. And prior to MyAgData, Michelle held leadership roles at firms including Nuveen Investments, Parametric Portfolio Associates, and Morgan Stanley. Michelle served as an adjunct professor in finance at Stetson University and began her career in the audit and advisories business at EY. Michelle earned her master's in science and accountancy from University of Notre Dame and a bachelor's of business administration and finance from Stetson University. Quite the background. And lastly, we have with us Ms. Kat Clower. She is our client engagement specialist for MyAgData, and in this role, she manages onboarding clients and leads trade show and conference presence. She grew up on her family farm in West Virginia and has a strong background in agriculture and livestock. She currently lives in Montrose, Colorado. Kat received her bachelor's degree in animal sciences and with a concentration in animal agribusiness, along with a minor in food and agribusiness management from Purdue in 2020, and an associate's in applied sciences in agribusiness from Lakeland. While studying at Purdue, she was an active member of Sigma Alpha, the professional agriculture sorority, and as a director of fellowship and accomplished 2 internships with MyAgData. And they loved her so much they kept her around because she does an awesome job. One of her favorite memories from Lakeland College was spending 2 weeks in the country of Belize on an agriculture experience study abroad. So you have a lot of knowledge here today to come talk to you about MyAgData, and I'm going to stop talking and turn it over to them.
Well, good afternoon, everyone. We normally like to present live and in a room with people where we can interact with. So we're going to do our best to bring you into this conversation and not just sit here and speak at you. So I'm going to start off with, that was a very long bio that Megan read on my behalf, but I really have only one claim to fame. And I'm going to bring it up. And what I want to know is I want each of you to raise your hands if you can beat me. Okay. My claim to fame is I grew up in a very small farming town in Canada, in Manitoba. And I graduated, my graduating class had 11 kids in it. Can any of you beat me? Raise your hand if you had a class that was smaller than 11 kids. See, and at this point, it gets difficult because I don't know if you're just not responding or if I win. So I'm going to go with the fact that I win. And so that's what people really find interesting about me, not all that other stuff that Megan talked about. So today what we want to bring to you is we want to tell you a little bit about acreage reporting and how MyAgData has been a part of revolutionizing this very current manual process that almost every grower has to conform to. So Kat, if you wouldn't mind going to the first slide, I'll just give a brief background on why it's required to file an acreage report. And while we're moving on to this page, can I get a show of hands of anyone on the call who is familiar with 578 or acreage reporting? I'm not seeing any hands, but I'm not sure that I'm in the right mode though either. Okay, well, I'll take it all the way back to the beginning. So acreage reporting for any farmer across the United States. Oh, Cody has experience with it. Great. For any farmer across the United States that wants to participate in a federal farm program, they are required to file a 578 with the FSA, and they are also, if they want to participate in a crop insurance program, they are required to file a very similar report with the RMA and their crop insurance agency. Currently, 98% of acres across the United States participate in some form of federal farm program. So almost every grower across the United States is required to file an acreage report. Currently, there's about 2.5 million reports filed annually. And as you think about a report, it actually has to be filed. The report has to be filed for every operator that has a farming operation. So every tax ID or FEIN has to submit a report, and a report also has to be submitted for each season that a grower farms. So if they do spring beans and winter wheat, that would be 2 reports annually for that grower. We started working alongside the USDA, as Megan said, about 10 years ago. In the 2012 Farm Bill, it was mandated that Congress ease the burden on growers in this very manual process. And at that point, we started working alongside the USDA to create a digitized or electronic format for growers to submit their acreage report. Throughout that time and with our conversations at the USDA, they anticipate that once electronic acreage reporting is widely available, which the first time was spring of 2023, they anticipate that within 5 years, 95% of growers will move from their manual approach to an electronic form of submitting their acreage report. So I'm going to stop just for a second. Those of you on the call, if you want to, we can have them throw things in the chat, correct, Megan?
Yeah,
do we have any questions yet, or anything anyone wants to know before we start moving on?
Looks like we're okay. Yeah.
Okay, thanks, Megan. So what does this look like? Cody knows, but for the others on the call, it's a really interesting process that growers have to go through currently. If you look at the left-hand side of the sheet, what you're going to see is a very manual paper map process. So currently, growers have to go into their FSA office, and if they farm in more than one county, they'll have to go to each county in order to get their paper maps. They are instructed to use colored pens in order to write very specific information on those pieces of paper. You can see that on the left-hand side, the white piece of paper with the red ink on it. This process can take more than 12 hours as it relates to just submitting that information to the FSA office. But keep in mind, exactly, that was my sentiment. But keep in mind, on the other side, you have to do a very similar process as it relates to your crop insurance. So double that amount of time. What you see on the right-hand side is the way we have digitized the entire process for the grower. So this is a cloud-based solution where the grower can submit all of their information electronically and really make that process. There are 3 key benefits, and I so want to step all over Don and give you those 3 key benefits, but I'm not going to, Don. I'm going to pass it over to you and have you talk about the 3 key benefits you have from moving from that really manual process to an electronic process. So Don, over to you.
All right, I lost my screen here. So there we go. Yeah, and I appreciate your comment there, Josh. These back in the day, when I had to work with those black and white maps, we lived by those maps. I mean, I was in input supply business. We had to put fertilizer and chemicals on all these fields for farmers, and I had stacks of those things. And I had to we went by those acres, and we all knew those acres were wrong. And so it was kind of a game. So we always liked to charge what was on the map for us when we went out and spread fertilizer and chemicals, because we knew it was a big number. And the farm, oh, there's not really 80 acres in that field. It's only like 76 and a half. So that's all I want you to charge me for. Well, so this whole idea of these CLUs or these FSA maps as they've been described, they are appropriate for what they were built for, but they're not a vessel that you can accurately report planted acres. And everybody knows it, and it's just sort of we've just all put up with it. So to be able to actually report what's been planted, to be able to use technology that's in virtually the very vast majority of farms operating in the country today, is a major step that the USDA has taken. And realize we've been at this now for a long time. We've been working with the USDA for well over a decade to help them understand what actually, quote, happens in the field, and that yes, that 80 acres is really not 80 acres, and what needed to happen at the USDA to allow for electronic acreage reporting to happen is a big deal, and it has taken a long time, and it's taken the cooperation of multiple agencies at the USDA to get us to that point. So what you see here on the screen is there are lots of benefits aside even from these 3, but these are the main ones, and I'm going to save money for last. The thing I think is probably the best that I'll go to is saving time. I'll start in the middle just to be different. We've got a customer up in southwest Wisconsin that farms about 7,500 acres. It takes them, ladies and gentlemen, a whole week to file their acreage reports because they have to go to 4 different FSA offices. And those 7,000 acres, they have like 1,100 fields that they have to report. Southwest Wisconsin has little tiny irregular shaped fields, and every one of them has a CLU, and it's a painstaking, tedious process, and it's for folks like that don't farm square sections at a time, that they know this pain. Yeah, there you go, Eastern North Carolina. I've been there. In fact, I got kids live down there. So yes, it's a common thing, even for farmers that do have nice big square fields and regularly shaped, and they are close to what the USDA says they are. They still have to go into the FSA office, and they still have to write in that piece of paper with that colored ink pen. And when they know there's a better way they can do it, they know they have really accurate information in their tractor cabs, in their planter monitors, but they have to do it this way because that's the way they have to do it. So the saving time is a big deal, and for certain operations, it's a game changer. I mean, if I don't have to go, if I can just hit buttons and verify what my machine data is telling me in MyAgData, and I can do that at the house at night, I don't have to. I can save myself a whole bunch of time. The other thing that I'll tell you, just a real quick story, this reduced risk is a big deal too, if you've ever been audited by a crop insurance agent or by the FSA. And it used to be, again, back in the day, like 4 or 5 years ago, that when you filed that 578 or when you reported your acres to the FSA office, you better darn sure make sure that your crop insurance agent has the same exact acres, because if those acres don't match, that's like a red flag that goes up, and people start to wonder, well, why don't those match? They should be the same, right? Well, there's lots of reasons why they could be different. And this process that Michelle just described, where a farmer's got to write on a piece of paper with red ink pens or green ink, whatever color they're given to write on, somebody's got to read that person's writing and key in that same information into this big 40-year-old database that the USDA has. So they first have to be able to read your writing, and second, they have to make sure they don't key something in wrong. And that's only half the battle, because once you get that first part done, someone at your local crop insurance agency has to do the same thing. Even though they got the 578 report, they still have to read that report, and they have to key that information in by hand into an AIP's database so that they can administer a crop insurance policy for a farmer. I'm sorry, but there's lots of room for error there. And if there's an error, it's the farmer that's on the hook, and they have to go jump through a bunch of hoops, and they have to deal with that. So reducing risk is no small thing, and it leads us then to the last one, which is save money. And I frankly think that's probably the least. Everybody likes to save money, right? But I think the other two, for most farmers that farm and any size operation, I think they're going to put this saving money down toward the bottom of the list, just because the other two things are so painful, so significant, and take so much of their energy. You think farming ought to be easier than that, but this is just it's a complicated process, and farmers know it doesn't have to be that way. But when you can report what you actually plant, you do save money. It'd be like having to buy car insurance on vehicles you don't even own anymore. So it is real money, and for larger operations, it can be tens of thousands of dollars. So it's not insignificant. It's an extra incentive for you to consider electronic acreage reporting, aside from the fact that you can save a whole bunch of time. And when you submit an electronic acreage report with MyAgData, the farmer looks at that, or whoever's doing it for that farmer verifies that information is right in our application. Once that data gets submitted, nobody ever has to read red ink on a black piece of paper. Nobody has to key anything in. That data is the same everywhere across FSA and RMA, and that sameness is a pretty powerful thing. So that in a nutshell, I think these, and we talk about these benefits all the time, these are the three main ones. They're all going to apply differently to each farmer. Every situation is going to be different, but there's a little bit of trueness for every one of these for every grower in their situation. So, Kat? Is there no slide? Thank you. So one of the things, and I'm going to go over this fairly quickly, and it's not to impress you that we're doing business with growers that farm a lot of acres, although that, I'll tell you one thing, when you're working with an application and you're working with somebody that's got 300 acres and 6 fields, it's a whole lot different when you're working with a 40,000 acre grower and they got 2,300 fields. So it's important to be able to scale and to make things work and to kick all the tires, so to speak, when you're writing code. But the thing that I think I want to leave with you on these three scenarios here is they describe 3 different ways farmers can report their acreage. And the little bit that we've dealt with growers directly as this acreage reporting process has become more real over the last couple of years, we've been involved, and we won't talk about all that today, but we've been involved in at least a half a dozen different pilots with the USDA. And so we feel farmers' pain. We understand their aims and objectives. And one of those objectives is no 10 farmers none of them all want to report the same way. So that first grower there from Ohio, they are quite content to use their CLUs to do that. Actually, it's pretty fast to be able to report by CLUs. Once you bring your CLU layer into MyAgData, and today that process, you go through farmers.gov to bring that CLU layer data, same boundaries that you would report on in the FSA office. It's very simple and it's very straightforward, and literally you could file a 10,000 acre report. It's like maybe an hour. It doesn't as fast as you can click on a field, look at it, and say and pick a crop in the acres. You can go pretty quickly, and it's a far cry from what a farmer has to do today when they have to report by hand or in person at a local FSA office. That middle grower from Minnesota talks about how, they've had to go to multiple counties and all that sort of stuff. But what they're also doing is they are utilizing the machine data, and to the extent that growers have that technology in their operations, even if it's not on every planter or they don't collect it on every field, to the extent that you can bring that data into our environment and use that as a starting place to go ahead and complete your acreage report, that's a big bonus for folks. And they invest a lot of money in this technology, and this is another use for that data that is a brand new way that farmers can generate a return off that investment they have in that technology in their operation. And that grower in Minnesota, that's what they use to do their acreage report. So for growers that really work with that data, they use that data for multiple things in their operations: input use management, other crop management, planning sort of things. This is yet another way that they can monetize that investment they have in their technology. And then that last grower in Iowa was an acreage report that was done through a crop insurance agent, and it's an example of a pretty large operation, and the testimonial there about how, and I forget but it was a large amount of savings. I want to think, Kat, it was like 7,000 or 8,000 acres was what they were over reporting. I'm probably getting that acre wrong, but that's a lot of money. And so aside from the fact that it was taking this I've heard stories, got people talking about what it take them weeks to get their acreage report done. So it kind of describes again and gives some context to how farmers are amen. So and it's no small thing to give someone back a week of their time in a farm, that they can go do other things besides dink around with an acreage report that they know is not going to be right when they get done. And they know there's a better way that they could do it if they were just allowed to do it. So I think that's the sort of where we were going with this slide here, was to kind of give some more context to these benefits that we see with acreage reporting. But the other point that I wanted to stress is there are some farmers that want to report that CLU boundary. They want to report that way that the FSA said they want to report that 80 acres that FSA says it is, even though they know it's only 76 and a half. They want to continue to report that way. And I just want to make the point, you have that ability to do that. You have that ability to gain all the benefits related to the reduce the risk, because the thing doesn't have to get keyed in multiple times, and you get to save all this time, even if you want to report CLU lake acres. That's not to say that everybody has to have a real high-end data collection system out there for their planning operation and work with machine class, because you don't have to do that. There is another step in here too, where there's other ways you can get data into our environment to do acreage reporting, but these are the main three, and that's right. That I realize that not every device a planter or a farmer pulls across the fields collecting data. That's exactly true. The other thing that happens a lot of times is people don't know about solar weather, but if you have solar weather and it horses up your GPS when you're out there, you're probably not going to be collecting a lot of good data. And solar weather is something that none of us can control. So there's always going to be gaps in the data that we collect from that technology. So having the ability to backfill that with some of these other data collection processes or other means to get this acreage report done where those gaps exist, that's what our goal was. And again, that's the point for talking about these three examples. So, Kat?
Yep.
And Josh, you're going to see Kat's going to walk us through a quick demo. She's going to show you the 4 different ways that we can accept data. And as you brought up, you can use a combination of any of those methodologies as it relates to each field. So feel free to keep the questions coming.
Thank you. I'm just going to switch my screen here, and then I will reshare.
And while Kat is pulling that up, I will just ask, how many of you think Don is awesome? Because I love hearing his perspective from the field. And I just can't get enough of listening to him tell stories of him working directly with growers across his very long career.
I was gonna say, Michelle, he did a farmer voice in there that I definitely have heard, maybe a different conversation, but when those things get tense and they want things the way they want them, you know, we all know it's important to rise to the occasion, right? And make sure we're providing solutions.
Amen.
Exactly. And I'm just looking through the questions that were in the chat. We had Josh who had asked if he can use different combinations of tools in order to bring in his data, which we answered, and you're going to see a little bit more. We've also had a conversation about fields not lining up the way farmers actually farm today. What's interesting about our launch is this is the first year that the USDA clearinghouse has been open, and that's where you get that ability to submit your actual planted acres that will go into both FSA as well as RMA for crop insurance. So this is actually the first year you've been able to submit those actual acres. Pat, are you ready?
Yes, ma'am. Yep, I'll take it over from here. You're welcome. Thank you. So as a grower, so once you get registered and logged in, it's super simple to walk through our application. The first thing you will see is your crops. So here we have the 9 most common crops planted across the United States per the USDA. As a grower, you'll have the option to edit these. So if you plant corn, soybeans, wheat, you can have those crops added in. For this, I'll just go ahead and add cotton. And I want to add this crop in, so I'll say okay. And then also if there's a crop on there here that is not listed, but you do plant, we can go ahead and add that crop in as well. So for today, I'm going to add in alfalfa, and it's the same information that is used at the FSA office as well. So I'm just going to go ahead and go put seeding, and then there's no cropping practice, and add this crop in. So as you can see here at the top, the alfalfa was brought in. These are the crops that I plant. So I'm just going to go ahead and scroll down and continue. So here it just verifies that these are the crops that you use on your operation. They look good. I'm going to continue. Next is our cropping practices. So here it's just if we do any tillage on our operation. The most used is what is pre-selected, but you can select how you practice your operation. Next, if there's any irrigation, and then finally, here's a planting practice as well. So if there's any prevent plant, volunteer, you can select that. And then we also included the organic practice as well. So if there's a couple of fields on your operation, or if your whole operation is organic, that is able to be selected. So once those look good, we can continue to create the field. So here's where we're going to be able to bring in those options of different data. You know, as Dawn mentioned, if you want to use your CLUs, you can use the boundaries from farmers.gov. We can manually add in a field from the map. But these are the 2 that I really want to talk about today, is if you have precision ag. So we can bring in your data through a flash drive from the planter, or we can do the cloud storage platform. So here we'll be able to bring in your FieldView Plus data. So we can select that and hit continue, and it brings you over to the login. So you'll just add in your credentials, hit login. The first thing that pops up is just the confirmation that you're bringing your data into the MyAgData system. I'm going to go back here. And we can also see the connections as well. So when it was applied into your account. I'm going to go back one more here and talk about, we can also bring in data through FMIS. So with that same cloud platform of the FieldView Plus, you can select that, hit continue, and bring in the data as well from there. For today, I did upload a file from the USB. So this file is loaded, and here is the status that says completed. Now that I've loaded that in, we can review our fields. So here we're able to view our planted fields or your field boundaries, as Dawn mentioned on this map. We use the same nape imagery that the FSA office used, so that map won't look unfamiliar to you. We can go ahead and we can zoom in on that map. We can select a field as well. So when we're setting up our crops, we do the majority. And so here, so if this field was irrigated, we can select irrigated and select save. And now that field is labeled as irrigated as well. We can edit the shareholders. Super simple. You can see your crops. Each crop has its own color code, so it's easy to view. And then we can file the report. So here, it's just the last step here. So we do have our USDA data disclaimers. So as the grower in our application, you have the right to the data. So FSA USDA is going to use your data when you certified for the federal farm programs, but also you have your producer information data. So here at MyAgData, we do not resell the data. So it's your information. We're just transferring it to the USDA for acreage report. So once you accept those, the next page is our credit card page. So you'll just fill out your credit card page, and then you can have the option to download your report and then submit it as well. And so this one report, as Michelle mentioned, is going to both FSA and RMA for crop insurance. Is there any questions about the application?
Yeah, one of them my own. So
Yeah.
curious, I'm a new user, or maybe I'm an existing user, and as we know, fields change. It looks like they're pulling in automatic pulls from that connection, but if I need to make an edit, should I do that in my FieldView account, or can I do that in my AgData account? What do you recommend, Kat?
I recommend your FieldView account. So if you're editing your boundaries of that field, but you do have the option. So if that field is pulled in through your FieldView Plus account, you can review the fields. You can make edits with the crop, any of the practices as well for that field.
Okay, and it looks like Michelle answered the question, but just in case anybody can't see it, Josh asked if they automatically flow in when you connect. And so just to confirm, yes, once you've made that connection, it looks like our system is set up to pull twice a day. So if you make it automatically, maybe wait until the next day if you don't see it immediately, but it will go ahead and check for you and get those updated. And then, Kat, once they update, do you need to go review them, or do they automatically update in the reporting area?
So if you update in FieldView Plus, I would say remake that connection.
Okay, good call. And then I thought I saw another question here. Looks like it's moved away. If there are any data issues on our teams cleaned up fields, sorry, Josh, let me reread this. If there were any data issues and our teams cleaned up the fields, would the data correct on the next pull? So I think we're asking a similar question there, where we would want to go make sure we reestablish that connection and send that boundary fresh over, right?
So as our connection, so once that connection is made, as Michelle responded to that, it brings in the data twice a day. So if you make that connection in the morning, and then it'll start pulling in your data that afternoon. So as your guys' planters are rolling, it's bringing in that data.
Perfect. Isn't that simple? We love that. I think that's all for now.
Okay, awesome. I'm going to go ahead. I'll stop sharing and jump back to the PowerPoint.
Megan, can you remind us how we're doing on time?
Yeah, so we did start a little bit early. I think in 4 minutes, we're probably going to get our 15-minute, hey, heads up, we're going to head back soon. So we are right on track.
Okay, perfect. I think I'm up next, right, Kat?
Yes, ma'am.
With the very important question of how much is all of this fantasticness going to cost me? We talked a little bit earlier, Don mentioned that one of the key benefits was cost savings. If you remember, and if you were live, I'm going to put in the chat. Do you remember how much it said on the slide you can potentially save, the average grower would save with a 1,500 acre farm? Do any of you remember what it said on that slide? Allison and Kate, look at you guys, way to go.
I'm not surprised
it was
they got it right.
$3,000. Yeah, and I'm amazing. So your average 1,500 acre farmer is going to save about $3,000 a year. The cost to file is $120. Allison, you're doing great. You're doing great. So it's $120 to file. And that, as you remember, if you remember from the very opening when I talked about what defines a report, remember if you do a spring crop as well, if you do summer or spring beans, and then you do winter wheat, that's 2 reports annually. And remember, it's per tax ID number. So if you've got several shareholders, let's say you and your brother farm together, that you would each need to file a report. But each report is $120. That's the 2023 pricing. And I will say, as we talked about, this is the first year the USDA is able to accept these electronic acreage reports. And from our conversations with growers, the $120 is a very, I don't want to say inexpensive, but we have not heard any farmer say it's too much money. And for those of you, Allison, especially you, as you're working with growers, they think everything is too expensive. So I just want to point out that it has been really well received from a price point perspective. Any questions about pricing? You can feel free to put them in the chat or hold up your hand. There are no other fees, Josh. We talked about the different ways that you can submit your data that you can use. None of those cloud connects are an additional cost through MyAgData. As you think about it, from a perspective of any tools you're using that you might be using to bring data into us, clearly that wouldn't be a cost that comes to us, but that would be something a grower would consider. Time is value. It was interesting. We were at a conference, about a month ago, and there was a grower panel, which I always love to listen into the farmer panels. And it was fascinating. There was a question that was asked about how are you thinking about technology? And one of the growers on the panel took he was sitting there and he goes, it's interesting. Previously, my dad and our farming operation, we really didn't take into account our own personal time, that, we factored in a lot of different other variables, but we didn't really factor our personal time as a cost. And he said one of the things they've started to do is really look at how much time are they spending on things that may not be core to the value they want to add to that farm. So I'm trying to think of, it was Megan, you are the one saying time is money or time is value. We're definitely hearing that from growers, and as margins become even more tight, you start looking at any way you can to save money. And this is a great way to save time and money. Just making sure there are any other questions. No other fees. Time is value. Josh is typing something frantically. It'll come up in just a minute, I'm certain. But that is our pricing methodology for 2023. We'll have our 2024 pricing out probably in Q4 of this year. I don't remember where we were going from here. Remind me.
We are going to the next slide. I'm just kidding. We're going to the
perfect
to the ending. Or takeaways.
Dawn, do you want to talk a little bit about our key takeaways?
I think we've already done this once. Yeah, we like I said, we've hit on these a lot. I think as I've been involved with this now since 2011, and that I've been aware of how farmers have had to do this for over a generation, and how we all just sort of had like a wink and a nod, knew that, okay, we're just doing this because the government wants us to do it, but we all know it's not right. And we'll do this just because we have to. This is the first time, and and I hope you can appreciate this, but there's not been very many things that have come to exist in a farmer's operation that impacts nearly every farmer in the country, that nearly every farmer has the same shared experience. And I'm going back, and I can remember back in the day when hybrid seed corn was a thing, and farmers had to decide whether to plant hybrid seed corn or a modified single cross corn. And it didn't take very long. Well, I can grow a lot better corn if I have hybrid corn, so it's innovations like that that cut across the entirety of agriculture literally overnight in terms of agriculture in the grand scheme of things. I believe electronic acreage reporting is one of those things. Once a farmer experiences how they can do it this way, and they come to understand that the USDA is going to let them do it this way, and hopefully with the feedback we've been getting from FSA in particular, they will want for farmers to do it this way because it makes it easier for them too. And this is just one of those things, again, that you can count on one hand, that a generation of farmers are going to look at and say, why did we ever do it the way that we did it? And it's because of the things we've talked about, but it's almost, we're standing too close to it, or at least I feel like we're too close to it, that it seems so obvious to us that this is going to be one of those things that just happens overnight. And there's just, and in my other life where we work with farmers every day, we want to be that person that helps introduce this technology and this new thing to that farmer, because we know they're going to love us for a long time. And so there's almost this emotional detachment to it that, yeah, it's not going to make a farmer a bazillion dollars, but it's going to free them up from this chain of acreage reporting that they've had to work with for so long. That's got to be a big win for the person or the company or the individual that makes the decision to go do this. And so I guess that's something I'd like to leave you with, that farmers still don't know that there's another way, but they will come to know pretty quickly once the USDA gets through this season and they sort of get their ducks in a row internally. They're going to start promoting this fact. So for those of us who know now that this is out there, I sort of challenge us to be that champion and be the person that asks that question to that farmer. Well, have you ever thought about doing electronic acreage reporting? And they say, well, what's that? I didn't know I could even do that. Well, now we hope that you've learned a little bit here today about what this is all about, to be able to take that conversation to those folks. And I guess my message here, or our message to you, is they'll thank you for a long time if you get to be the person that does that. So and there's all this other information on the screen there. Appreciate your time being with us today. And it's been a labor of love, I'll just say it that way. And to answer that question, I think as to Michelle's point, literally the USDA has only been open a few days here. So we haven't gotten to process near as many reports as we would like to, but I'll tell you this, we have had folks like Climate that have been partnered with us for a very long time. They've been waiting for this, and there are folks across the country who are eager to be that champion that brings this solution to farmers. So the USDA, and as Michelle said, started out with this presentation. The USDA expects for acreage reporting to be done this way over a period of time, and they don't want to do it the old way. So there'll be some farmers that they like spending an afternoon in the USDA clearinghouse or in the FSA office and visiting with people, and it's like a social thing, and that's fine. They can still go do that. But the other thing, I don't know if you caught it in the presentation, farmers will still have to go in the FSA office to certify their acres, but the report will already be done. So it's and once we get electronic signature done, and some of these, and the USDA's got some other electronic modern things they got to get buttoned down, but the day could come when they wouldn't even have to do that. So I guess with that, where do we go here next, Kat? Megan?
I'm going to do some questions and answers.
Yeah. That was an absolutely wonderful message, and I got some chills going on because I'm a little sentimental about ag. When I think about the moments in history, some of them I wasn't here for, some of them I have been, and when it comes to digital, this truly feels like that piece that we will remember as the tipping point. Right? We start getting the USDA involved in digital. Now we're for real on digital. It's not going away. Even though I know there are some folks out there that still wish their iPads would go away. They're not. And for the better, right? So that's amazing. So I want to ask a question here of the group. It's a two-part question. If a farmer is new to this, right, what is the first step they can take to get started? And when they take that step, or if they take that step, why do it now? What's first and why now?
Yeah, so I'll jump on the first part here and then I'll pass it to Michelle. So, how does farmers get started? So as we've talked about this, with the integration with FieldView Plus and MyAgData, it's going to streamline that experience. So as a farmer, you can access MyAgData at myagdata.com. And you can register for free, and you can sign back in as well if you've already created an account. And when you register, the registration is super simple, 30 seconds max. It's just your name or your operations business name, contact information, and then what county offices you consider your admin county office. So if you're in multiple counties, you just consider your admin as well. And once you go in, super easy. We guide you through the entire process to ensure, all your information is collected. We do also have a support line as well. So if you run into any questions, I know FieldView as well, Climate has an awesome customer service option as well too. So if you guys want to reach out to them or reach out to us, either or, we're both here to help you guys. And it's quick and accurate as well. So, we're simplifying that your production reports and acreage reports are more accurate with our APH as well. Michelle, I'm going to pass it on to you as the why now.
Sure. We've been having an active conversation in the chat screen. As we mentioned, we've been working alongside the USDA for 10 years to bring this technology to growers across the United States. The FSA did training for their FSA agents on June 15th in order to prepare them for the launch of the USDA clearinghouse. That clearinghouse went live last week. For those of us that are close to the agricultural community, so I think it was Allison, correct, who's learning? Yeah, Allison. Acreage reporting ends July 15th. The end date to have your reports filed is next Monday. Should be the 15th, but this year, as it falls on a Saturday, it'll be Monday the 17th. So as you can see, there's not much time for growers to get through electronically this year. So the why now is really now is the time when the USDA was ready to be able to accept the electronic files and have the USDA clearinghouse open and operating. So now is the time. It's been a long journey here. 5 pilots we've done with the USDA over the last 10 years. So as anyone who's worked closely with the government knows that they don't do things in a haphazard, fly by the seat of your pants way. And this is no exception. So this has been a really well-tested process and solution. So that's why now, and we're just super excited about it.
Phenomenal answer. I love that. It looks like we have a couple people typing, so we'll let them get their messages out. We have about 4 minutes before we head over and back to our group. So we've done phenomenal on time. I guess, let's see. I want them to get their questions in above mine. So maybe what I'll let you guys do while they're typing, I'll let you know how this is going to work. So in just a moment, what I will do is I will post the link to the main session in this chat. You're going to click that, leave this meeting, and go to the main session. Speakers included, and we're all going to go over there. And when we're there, we're going to share some key reflections from all the groups so you can hear what was going on in every session in case you want to check something else out. And then stick around because we're going to do a panel session. I want you to come ask some more questions. So Allison, just wanted to say this is really eye-opening for her and informative. Thank you for joining, Allison. We love that. Is there any final questions, thoughts, comments, concerns?
I just wanted to point out and thank Megan and team for making this a really well-run experience for us as MyAgData. We're a small company, 12 of us here. So having Megan organize this and get us in front of all of you, we're just really thankful. So thank you, Megan, for your hard work and the team. And we're hoping that each of you on the call, we're hoping you tell someone else about this great new way growers can submit their acreage reports.